TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to this week's TellyCast. My guest this week is Persian Comedy Powerhouse, writer and actor, and now independent TV production boss, Omid Djalili. Omid's illustrious career includes the Omid Djalili Show on BBC One, countless TV appearances on shows including Have I Got News for You, We Are Most Amused and We Are Most Amused and Amazed, two shows on ITV1 celebrating the then Prince of Wales' 60th and 70th birthdays, and film appearances in some of the biggest Hollywood blockbusters, including Gladiator, The Mummy, The World Is Not Enough, Notting Hill, and Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. We're going to get the inside track on his previous experiences in TV production, why he's setting up an indie now, and what makes Tiny Speck Productions different. Plus, we'll hear Omid's story of the week, hero of the week, and who or what he's telling to get in the bin. Don't miss that. It's all coming up on this week's TellyCast. Omid, welcome to TellyCast.
What a marvellous introduction. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Well, fantastic to have you here, and you're interrupting your tour at the moment. You're on tour. Tell us a bit about that.
I'm doing a work in progress show called Namaste, where there's a photograph of me with steam coming out my ears. Just that I'm just so shocked by what's going on with world events and trying to restrain myself and trying to make sense of it through the medium of stand-up comedy.
And the film as well. You're also shooting a film.
Shooting a film. That's why I look a bit of a mess. I've been asked to just leave my beard grow, and I'm wearing a hat to look like a kind of producer and director, but actually I'm just hiding a bald guy who's got hair growing out, and it looks awful. So I'm in disguise, really.
Well, I could talk to you for hours about your TV career and your film career, and we will touch on that a little bit. But we're going to focus on your new independent TV production company. So congratulations on setting up Tiny Speck Productions. So
it's a tiny speck, but it's a magnificent speck.
All right.
That's the whole idea. We're all small parts of a bigger whole, and we're all magnificent. That's the idea.
And so my first questions are, why your own indie and why now?
I've always wanted to do it, and all the best things in life grow organically. So my children, who are all in the business, I started working with my daughter, who went to Met Film School. She was a really ace editor. And the first thing we worked on was a music video, which was an England World Cup song. It was a song called England's Going Out to Do It Again for the 2014 World Cup. It was really well produced, really funny. And she edited it, and she was really quick. I mean, she's the kind of person who can talk to you and edit at the same time. I've never seen that before. So I've been working with her for over it's been 10 years now. And my son also went to Met Film School, and he started shooting my stand-up specials. And then my son-in-law, who married my daughter, he started winning awards for films. My son started winning awards. My daughter started doing documentaries for Panorama. And we just felt, guys, let's do something together. And then we had this Instagram drama that we did, which was for a campaign called the Our Story is One campaign about 10 Baha'i women of Shiraz who were all hanged on June the 18th, 1983. It was for the 40th anniversary. And we really wanted to do something special, a little 2-minute piece of content. And we came up with this idea to anglicize what had happened in Iran. And it just went viral. I mean, it was shared by a lot of big accounts. It had about altogether, I think, 3.5 million views. And we thought, guys, we are very good at working together. We're all on the same page. So we thought we'd formalize it. And when we formalized it, we then said, okay, what do we do now? We got some advice from other production companies who are friends. And they said, you need to just do a press release. We did a press release, and that went viral. And I asked my publicist, why did that go viral? She said, well, A, people like you, and B, we've not really seen many production companies that are family oriented. And that's actually very exciting. And I'd never really talked about my kids, who are now all adults, all had careers for the last 10 years. I've never really mentioned them in public. I've kind of protected them from the media. And now we've mentioned it, it's gone viral. So there's been a lot of interest. We've had lots of wonderful meetings with other production companies, TV companies, and streamers. So we've got a good bunch of things on our slate, and I'm looking forward to sharing them with the whole world.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. I look forward to getting into that. Now, many comic actors and comedians have got their own TV production companies, But some of those you could probably say that might be more of a vanity credit or a vanity production company. You're going to be very much more hands-on.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Tell me about what is it that you like about the process of TV production that you enjoy?
I really enjoy it for a number of reasons. Number one is I was very lucky to get a deal in 2002, 2003 to do my own show on NBC. I got a Perrier nomination at the Edinburgh Festival for a show that was post 9/11. I was the only comic doing a whole show about the aftermath of 9/11. And I ended up working with Whoopi Goldberg on a show called Whoopi, which was a hotel comedy, the first Middle Eastern actor, comedian on American sitcom. And Whoopi Goldberg always said to me, "You are for brown people what Richard Pryor was for black people." And I said, "Please don't compare me to one of the great comedy greats." She goes, "No, you're not as funny as Richard." I thought, that's good. She said, "But he was the first. And what he did was, I suppose, get a predominantly white middle American audience on his side first. And as he got older, he started being more true to himself." So she said to me, "You have to keep going and keep developing your comedy viewpoint and then also be a producer." So when that show finished, I was very lucky to be given the Omid Djalili Show on BBC One. And what they do, to give BBC real credit, they invite you to be part of the whole process. So you meet the director, you meet your producer, you choose. They said, these are the people. So I had meetings, chose my team. And then the team, what they do is that they edit the show, and then you're allowed to come in and, I suppose, fix things from your point of view. Because like they knew I was the first kind of Middle Eastern person doing that. And they said, is this right? And it was a very collaborative, God bless them, Michael Cumming, fantastic director, Alex Walsh-Taylor, superb producer. And they were extremely, I suppose, kind and collaborative. And there was never really any fights. We would work together, and they said, "Oh God, you're right." I said, "Well, didn't we have a take? Well, I did this. Yeah, you're right. Aren't we missing the punchline there? Yeah, you're right. Sorry." So they always look forward to me coming in, and we'd sit there, and it was never a fight. And I just always remember when, producers like Kent and Alan or Mark Freeland would come in, they'd watch like the first couple of episodes and say, "That's what the BBC wants to produce. That's excellent." And the three of us would look at each other, and we knew it was collaborative. So why now is that I like to collaborate with people. I like to see at that level, there's always great collaborations. And I've been very lucky to be on big films, like when working on Gladiator. You see Ridley Scott collaborating with Branko Lustig, who produced Schindler's List, who produced all these big movies. And you see it's a genuine collaboration, and you want to work with great people, and you want to do stuff that is genuinely interesting, informative, and uplifting. So when I talk with my family about the kind of work we want to make, seeing, I suppose, life through a hopeful lens, creating comedy which deals with the big issues of the day, the big questions that we have as humanity, through a lens that will entertain, educate, and elevate. When I saw that they were on board with the same thing, I thought, right, guys, let's pull together and let's start creating stuff.
So a family business in TV production, is that going to make it a bit more complicated, right? Because there's relationships, there's emotions.
Yes.
There's all of that family history and backdrop that you've got, as well as actually getting on and making a show with, and as you say, all the members of this team are talented in their own right. So does that make it more difficult?
I think it is difficult, and it's something that you have to be very clear with your boundaries and be very clear with roles as well. So it was very clear this wasn't me dictating at all. This is not me leading a company. We are very much all of us equal producers. So we speak to each other as equals. Obviously, there are times when we work on a script and, we're on Zoom and we're like saying, well, I'm not sure that's funny. And then, well, I think that's funny. And then I have to really bite my tongue and not say, well, do you know what? Why don't you go and win a Perrier Award? Why don't you go and, get nominated for this award? Win it. I start in my head listing, go and win, a Turin Film Festival Best Actor Award for The Infidel. But I just say, guys, okay, well, let's leave that and come back to it, So, and I know they're being restrained as well, because just because you who the hell do you? You're not really that funny anyway. So there's lots of things not being said.
Does that mean you get your own way in the end?
Not necessarily. What happens is that we have this tool of supposedly consultation, which means we all have an equal voice, and we chuck things into the middle. So things are not your idea anymore. You chuck it in the middle and it gets thrown around. That's the concept. It doesn't always work like that. But if you consult with this tool that your idea means you've been inspired from somewhere to come up with an idea, it's no longer your idea. You just chuck it in the mix and see what happens. So you have to be open to the fact that that idea might get meshed around. And sometimes my kids have pitched some things and I haven't quite seen it. Then I said, okay, I get what you're saying. Yes, that's good. But maybe say it like this. They go, yes. So it's like improvisation where you're supposed to say yes to something. In an improv, you always say yes. So I think that's the idea. We never say no. No one says, they've been trained to say, you can't just say, no, that's rubbish, unless you've got another idea. Like, how about we try this? So you hold back on saying that's not good until you have a suggestion. And you wait until you're inspired to say something. So it's actually an amazing model if it works, but it's a struggle to always make it work. And I think we all have to be very mindful of our language and our attitude, and be forgiving if we do get angry with each other. You forgive it, and we often laugh about it afterwards. And I think that's a creative process, and actually, ultimately, it's a very exciting process.
And we've talked about the films, or at the beginning of the introduction, we talked about the amazing films that you've been in, and some of the biggest Hollywood blockbusters, and who were made by some of the greatest Hollywood talent. So having worked with amazing talent behind the camera over many years, is there anything you can pinpoint that you've learnt over those many years of being in front of the camera that you're now going to put into action in your own company?
That's a very good question, because I'm very lucky to have been part of so many amazing productions where you've seen things. Often you're called in at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So you see how things are from the very beginning, and you learn work ethic. I never forget working on a film called Spy Game with Tony Scott, who's Ridley Scott's brother. And you're on set at 4:30, and you see he's already there. He's with Robert Redford, with Brad Pitt. They're already discussing shots. And I just ask him, how long have you been up? He goes, well, we finish and we go back to my room and we discuss the shots till 11. We go to bed and we wake up at 3. So I said, you've only had 4 hours sleep? He goes, yeah. He goes, when you're filming, you haven't got time, man. They're all from the South Shields. He goes, I haven't got time to mess about, man. You got to get on with it, And I said, yeah. So it was very funny to work with him and to see his work ethic, first of all, and how collaborative he was. Like, because Robert Redford was a big director, they would often discuss the shot for a good hour before we shot things. But I saw the respect they had for each other, and also how, I suppose, on top of it they were with everything, and they were planned and prepared. And you see these big productions, and you get, I said, how did you find this guy? Like the first on Gladiator, they've had this amazing first assistant director, first AD, a guy called Terry Needham, who I didn't realize was a huge legend in the field, who could deal with 5,000 extras. He could deal with everyone. Like 1 minute saying, oh, you lot, you out of the shot. Effing get out of that bloody shot. All right, Omid, want a cup of tea? Like a biscuit? Lovely to have you here. Oi, piss off out of it. So I would see him work, and he was a real legend in the business. So I could see how they dealt with stress. I could see how they, I suppose, were working. And when you see that at the highest level, they're all extremely, I suppose, socially intelligent, emotionally intelligent people. At that level of the film business, they're all tremendously with it people and very focused. So when you see that level, the first thing I wanted to do for my production company is when we've got a first scripted project, and I really wanted to get them to learn as well from the best in the business. So as far as scripted comedy is concerned, having worked with him a couple of times and seen the way he works, Matt Lipsey, I felt, was the best person to handle this particular project, which is semi-improvised, and also for my team to learn from him. And I was very lucky. We spoke, I pitched the idea to him, and he was very kind to say, Omid, it's not very often I get tremendous projects land in my lap. Sometimes I do things because you feel I have to do them. And this one is like out of nowhere. You've given me such a wonderful project that I can't wait to get my teeth into. And to see that level of encouragement from him, and then the team met with him, he liked them and they absolutely loved him. So for me, having worked with people like Ridley Scott, Tony Scott, and all these amazing directors, I really wanted to have a directing place. And that as a producer, only you can do that. Only you can approach the people who you think, and they had to trust me that it was the person I thought would be the best for them for the first project.
And Matt Lipsey, Little Britain, and Ted Lasso.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Amazing credits.
But having seen that, I worked with him on Lenny Henry in Pieces, which was a sketch show Lenny Henry did back in the 99, 2000. And I'm just watching the way he worked. He was the calmest person on set. He had a great comedy idea. He would have an idea and goes, can we shoot that again? But can we, and he'd go and whisper something in my ear or whisper something in Lenny's ear, and we would try it again. And then we do it and he goes, got it, move on. And then you watch it back and it's hilarious. So having seen his work, which looks great, and he had such a great eye and ear for comedy. I think that's the most difficult thing. You can always be someone who's good at creating things that look nice and are dark, but to actually create funny is scientific and requires real talent. And he was one of the few people I've come across who just has that ear and could fix things, and never was a very calm. We said, try this, and he go, didn't work. Okay, how about we do it like this? So he was always very, very proactive in finding the comedy.
And so I know we can't talk too much more about that project, but you're going to be focusing on, as well as scripted comedy, unscripted as well.
Yes.
And your mission statement is to explore society's big questions through a hopeful lens.
Yes.
Can you just expand on that a little bit?
It just means that, when you're doing comedy, we want, and I think most TV companies and channels want this as well. People are tired. They come home from work. They want stuff to make them laugh. They want things to uplift them. They don't necessarily want dark. Yeah, there's some people want dark, and there are crime dramas you can watch. There's some channels you can watch dark comedy on. But to deal with the big questions, which is relevant to the people at home, and to actually make them laugh, we felt it's such a contribution to society, because comedians have to serve their audiences. When I go out, I want them to laugh and I want them to go away uplifted. So it's a service industry. And the reason why it's a service industry is because if you do make people laugh and people watch comedies, the idea is that you're in a better mood. You're in a more hopeful state. Therefore, you can deal with life better. You can make better intellectual decisions. Whereas depression, begets more depression. And then you start making mistakes. Then you start making terrible decisions. And life is about decision making. And I was talking to the great Ruud Gullit, who's the Dutch footballer who was manager of Chelsea once. And he said, when you're playing football, when someone passes you the ball, by the time you've received it and looked up, you've made 4 decisions. How do I receive the ball? You look up, what am I going to do with my next touch? Next touch, do I pass there? Do I pass there? You're making 4 decisions a second. And decision making is the most important thing in football, because that's when the crowd goes mad, when you should have passed it and you shot and you missed. Why didn't you pass the ball? Decision making is the most important thing. And I really feel that if you can be part of a process where people are laughing, they're more hopeful and uplifted, which helps them in their life choices and decision making, that's the most tremendously enlightening, honorable, and privileged profession to be in. And
you've never shied away from tensions around the Middle East. In fact, you've done the opposite. You've absolutely leaned into them. And I think, that's really inspirational for a lot of people, certainly when it comes to stand-up. Now, when it comes to TV and the whole atmosphere around this situation at the moment is it's kind of febrile, isn't it?
Yeah,
you could tell it feels quite explosive. I mean, when you're talking about bringing those sort of projects into to the world of TV, does that make it more difficult? Are there things that you can do on TV that you might not be able to do in stand-up at the moment, in the current atmosphere? Or, how do you see things translating into TV today?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'm very fully aware of cancel culture. I'm aware that even this interview is going quite well. I could easily say something that will destroy my career and your career, and you'd be off. And I could say something and then you'd laugh and they say, Justin, why didn't you pick him up on this? That was appalling. So we're well aware of that, and we're well aware of the pitfalls, and it is a real thing. But we're not, I suppose, creating stuff out of fear. When you create stuff, it has to be from a place where you want to share and you want it to be joyful. Comedians always want people to be laughing, to be joyful. We're not there to make people upset.
It's a positive emotion.
It's a positive thing. And we're not there to upset. We're not there to make people worry. Even in my last show, Namaste, sometimes I take the audience on a journey and there's a lot of talking, but then there's a gag at the end, and the explosion of laughter from the sheer relief is remarkable. But I think that what I'm trying to say is that when you always have, as a service industry, the audience's joy in mind, then these are underlying principles behind the comedy, which if you follow the principles, you'll always be fine. And the audience hopefully will take it with the way it's meant.
And the process of making TV involves pitching,
yes,
of course. Now, do you enjoy that pitching process? Because I mean, I think it's fascinating for you, as years of stand-up, being one of the leading stand-up comedians in front of trying new things out in front of audiences, as you're doing now,
yes,
as well as established shows in front of thousands of people. When it comes to pitching to that one commissioner, do you enjoy that process?
Well, I'm a people person. I like people. So sometimes you go into a room and you never met anyone. Like we've pitched to a couple of channels and, streamers. We met one person I met before, but none of these people I met before. And because I like people, it's always a joy to meet new people. That's the first thing. And then when it comes to pitching, you have to be so careful to, brevity is the soul of wit. So you've got to be very brief. I'll give you an example. When we were shooting The Infidel, we were asked to, me and David Baddiel went out to the Cannes Film Festival because Salt, who were the international distributors, they said, can you come to the Cannes Film Festival? We want to sell the film. And it'd be best if the writer and the main star of the film come. And we were discussing it. And I was saying, we've got to get the pitch down to like a few words. Because I'd say, David, what do you think? And he goes, well, this is about my life where I've been beaten up twice. Once for being Jewish and once for people thinking I'm Pakistani. Because actually, I thought when I first saw David Baddiel, I thought, Baddiel is one of us. He's a brother. Baddiel. So I thought, and when I met him, I said, hey, brother. He goes, I'm Jewish. I said, really? I thought you're Pakistani. He goes, do you know what? I've been beaten up for being a Pakistani. We were talking about it. And then we shaved it right down. The film The Infidel is about Muslim finds out he's a Jew. That's it. It's a 5-word pitch.
Yeah.
So when we went to Cannes, Salt had this little office, and all these people would come. Distributors come in from Benelux. I said, "What's Benelux?" Because that's Belgium and Luxembourg. I said, "Well, this film it's a Muslim finds out he's a Jew." He goes, "And what happens?" I said, "Find out. Give us your money, then you can find out." And so with a combination of being brief and funny, because sold. We did about $800,000 of business in that first day, and Salt just says, do you know what? If you ever fail as a comedian, as an actor, you got a job here, because you understand pitching is about being brief, to the point, and do it with a twinkle in your eye. And if you do that, then I think you're okay. So and also in life, when you wake up, even from the moment I wake up, I'm so excited. From the moment I open my eyes, I think glass of water, wake me up, cup of coffee, I'm up, and I want to enjoy the coffee. I want to enjoy the pitch. I want to enjoy making the film. And that's one thing I realized when I work with all these big movies, even on The Mummy, my God, when you look at Stephen Sommers, who did quite a few of those movies, he was the most, he looked like he was on 15 cups of coffee from literally 4 a.m. because he loved it. He goes, I love this movie. I love it. I said, have you got everything? Because we shot the shit out of it. We got everything. It's going to be so hard for the editors, man. They're never going to get through all this. Shot the shit out of it. And I love that because he was just enthusiastic about every moment of the day. And I think that's a way of being. And that's why we're all in this business, because we love this business.
And now it's time for Story of the Week, where my guests get to highlight their TV industry story of the past few days. Omid, what's your story of the week?
This week, I got a call from an old comedy friend who was called, I can name him, Smashy. Smashy is someone who used to run a comedy club in Southend in 1996. And when I first started out doing comedy, I was never on a bill with women because I was seen as the diversity. So it was always like, Omid plus 2 white guys, or it would be like a speciality act and 2 white guys. So I was the speciality act. And he saw me, and I remember back in 96, he goes, you in my office now. He goes, just want to say, loved your act. Thing is though, can't recommend you. don't know your name. You're Omid Djalili. I can't say that. He goes, what you need to do, get a picture of yourself, big turban, Alibaba pantaloons, curly-toed shoes, call yourself Alibaba, the Sultan of Comedy. He goes, you get a lot of work that way, mate. You get a lot of work. And I said, okay, thank you very much. He goes, promise me you'd do that, and I swear you'd go to the top, mate. You'd have a BBC show anytime. And the amazing thing was, 10 years later was when I had my BBC One show. I'm outside BBC television, and he was walking past near a cafe. He goes, Omid, is that you? He goes, what are you doing here? I said, Smash, I've got my own TV show. He goes, oh my God, did you use the turban and Alibaba's Sultan of Comedy, what I told you 10 years ago? And I said, no, I didn't. He goes, do you know what? You would have been here 5 years earlier if you'd taken my advice. You see, you lost it, mate. You lost me, and it was just so funny. And it is actually interesting. He's probably right as well. Who's to say he's not right? Because actually you're always trying to hit the mainstream. And if the mainstream sees you in a certain way, you got to play with that. At the beginning, when Whoopi Goldberg was saying, you got to play. And I know there's a friend of mine, Maz Jobrani, who was an American comic, and Mitzi Shaw at the Comedy Store said, you're very funny, but you need a hat. You got to come on with a fez and do all that kind of stuff. And he did that for a little while, and then he kind of dropped it. So for me, that's the story of the week for someone from my background who actually was very lucky, who didn't have to do that. But I now question, maybe I should have. I probably would have been way ahead in my career.
Yeah, but saying that, then you become typecast, don't you?
Yeah,
your
exactly.
Character becomes, the thing. But,
but if you're watching Smashy, I love you, and I really appreciate the advice.
All right, now it's time for Hero of the Week, Omid.
Yes.
So who's your hero of the week?
Wow. I've got many heroes, and it's someone who is not in comedy, but who is an artist, and I absolutely love him. It's Carlos Santana. Carlos Santana, who is one of the greatest guitarists of all time, has been around for God knows how many decades. 5 decades. He's been probably 6 decades. He's about 76, 77 now. And I'll never forget watching his documentary on a plane. And I was very moved by it because he's the only person who was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Rock Hall of Fame, at age 52. And he was insulted. He was actually insulted. And he was like saying, because anyone who is inducted in the Hall of Fame, it's the end of their career. And I feel I've got more to give. And this is in 1996. And then by 1999, he felt pregnant with a new album. And it was Supernatural that won 8 Grammys. And I'll never forget what he said, because he said, the world does not belong to 17 to 27-year-olds. And if you're in your 50s, you can have a fabulous second act. And when I look back at my first act, I feel that was all preparation now for my second act. And that's why creating Tiny Speck and working with the people who are the closest to me, who have this similar kind of, I suppose, ethos about how to do things and what to produce, I'm now about to embark on my fabulous second act. So it was amazing to hear Carlos Santana actually put that into words with something I felt, but I didn't know how to articulate. So I'm thankful to Carlos Santana for that.
And something I didn't ask you earlier, but setting up an indie at this time where we're in the sort of the winds of recession and the TV industry is having a really tough time. So does that not faze you at all?
Not in the slightest, because I do know that part of the principles when you have a production company or even as an artist, which is always to say yes, is that even if the gatekeepers say the door is firmly shut, you have to think of creative ways to open those doors. And again, if you're guided by principles of truth, integrity, and real creativity, and have something that is original and authentic, those doors ultimately I really believe they will open eventually. So I don't believe that, okay, it's a tough time. People say, there's no money for this, don't know that. But then you just have to think creatively and work with people and collaborate. I think that's always been the way forward for me. And I hope it'll be the way forward for Tiny Speck.
And with your Instagram drama, you obviously proved that there's a way to make your own door as well. Yes,
it does. And I think that because that particular story meant so much to all of us, to try and find a creative way so it would be viewed a lot. And we were hoping we could probably get 500,000 views with this. Didn't think it would get 3.5 million views. In fact, we believe that particular Instagram thing was shut down because it was going completely viral. It suddenly hit On my page, it was 2.3 million, and then it didn't get a single view more. And I think there were certain forces, I won't say what, were there to try and stop it going forward. And that's what happens sometimes. By doing that and seeing the power of that, it really convinced me that actually I'm working with a group of people who are thinking the similar way. You can unlock things, and then hopefully it'll be viewed way more than you could ever imagine.
And finally, who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
It's controversial. I'm going to nominate myself.
That's the first ever self-nomination, I think.
I'm going to nominate my first half, the first act of my life. I'll be putting straight in the bin, because even though I was successful, and even though I was, I suppose, seen as something new and very fresh, I've only just now looked back on certain things I've done. And I was very excited when I did those first films like The Mummy, Gladiator. I thought that my life was going to be a life of dignity, doing amazing, privileged, film sets, big Hollywood blockbusters. And then obviously 9/11 happened. And then I suppose I got called to become a stand-up, and becoming a stand-up is different because in a sense you have to kind of lose your dignity. You have to say what people are thinking but would never dare say. The clown, in a sense, you put yourself in a position which is a different thing. You're making people laugh, but doesn't mean they necessarily respect you completely. And I think that I always found that difficult with certain groups of people I work with, where I was on board as a producer, but they never really listened to me. And I look back at myself and I think, well, I'm not surprised, because I look like a mentally ill person, really overweight. I mean, I'm still overweight, balding, didn't have any sense of fashion, just a comedy kind of Tasmanian devil, where everybody would say, you're just the funniest thing. But when I would work with them and I'd say, guys, let's not pitch this script now. Oh no, we have to pitch it. But okay, the script's not great, but we'll pitch it and then we'll change it afterwards. I said, no, guys, you get one shot at this. And I'm telling everyone, other producers, big production companies, guys, do not put this script in, because it's a one-shot deal and it's over. They go, okay, no, forget about it. And then the script would be pitched, and then it's gone. The whole project went away and never came back. So I realized I trust my instincts, but I don't trust that people respect me enough to listen to me. And I think that respect needs to be earned, and you need to put yourself in those spaces to prove yourself. So by being in this producer space, as well as continuing as a performer and knowing what works and sorting out your mind, being a bit more strategic and systematic in the way you present yourself and the ideas you have, that's how people will then listen to you. And I think that's a process, but I haven't been like that all my life. And I would say the first half of my career, up until a few years ago, I put in the bin and say, thank you, you've served your purpose, but we're moving on from that now. All
right. So Omid version 1 in the bin, Omid version 2.0 is here with Tiny Speck.
You said it right there. Omid 2.0 version. I like that. Exactly.
All right. Omid, thank you so much for joining me this week. It's been amazing to chat to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Habibi. It's been great to talk to you, my friend. So Justin, you are great, and it's great to be here, and I hope we come back and do this all over again when I go into Omid Djalili 3.0, when I'm Larry David's age and talking about my career as a legend.
Well, that's about it for this week's show. As ever, thanks a lot for listening. You can check out video versions of all of our recent shows on our YouTube channel, TellyCast TV. Just click on the link in the episode description to subscribe, or search TellyCast TV on YouTube. TellyCast was produced by Spirit Studios. We'll be back next week with another TellyCast. Until then, stay safe.